When we created our feature service with our feature layer and tables, we added a couple of fields to each of them, namely the object ID and one extra field. In this video, we are going to add fields to each of our feature layers and tables in our feature service using the ArcGIS API for Python. So open up the addfield.py script from the fields folder. We're going to add fields to all our feature layers and tables in our feature service. We're going to do this using the FeatureLayerManager add to definition method. By now, I hope you're getting comfortable with accessing the JSON behind a feature service and the feature layer and table objects. We first access ArcGIS Online using our GIS class and supplying in the home string. We'll assign our GIS object to a variable called AGOL. I'm going to use our GIS object and access the content manager and use the get method to supply in our feature service item ID, which I'll paste in now. The get method returns an item object representing our content item, which is a feature service. I'm going to assign the item object to a variable called item. We're going to get the current field information for one of our feature layers, and that will be our trail viewpoints. Here we're accessing the item object layers property, which is a list of feature layer objects, and we want the first feature layer from that list that represents our trail viewpoints. We'll assign our feature layer object to a variable called FL. I'm going to access the properties property from our feature layer object and print the name of the feature layer, which will be trail viewpoints. We're going to access the fields property, which is a list of dictionaries. Well, it's a list of JSON dictionaries that represents the information for each field in our trail viewpoints layer. So let me run the script. We can see we returned a list of dictionary-like objects. This is JSON. We have our object ID that we set when creating our feature service and adding the layers. And we also added in the viewpoint name. We can see the properties associated with a field. We have the name, type, the actual type, an alias, SQL type, length, nullable, editable, domain, and default value. And we're going to use most of that for templating and adding fields to our feature layers and tables. If I scroll down, we have the global ID that's added when you enable sync. We have our creation date, creator, edit date, and editor that's added when we enabled editor tracking. And that completes the current fields for our trail viewpoints layer. I'm going to go back to the script and I'll comment out printing the fields information. And I'll open up the first example where we are going to add fields to our trail viewpoints layer. So here we're getting our trail viewpoints layer as a feature layer object. We're creating a list of dictionaries and we're going to call that list add fields list. We're going to create a viewpoint type field. The type is Esri field type string. We have the SQL type, the length of 10. It cannot be null and it is editable. Just notice we are omitting the alias here that we can see in the viewpoint description. We will update the alias for that field in the next video. For viewpoint description, very similar to the field above, it has a different length and we're adding in the alias of the viewpoint description. We have an average rating that is of Esri field type double. And I've created a field here called not needed. I'm going to add this field and then delete it in a couple of videos time. Now we want to add the fields list above to our trail viewpoints feature layer. I've created a variable called status and we're going to use our feature layer object and access the manager property. The manager property is a feature layer manager object that has the add to definition method. The add to definition method has a required parameter that is a JSON dict param, and we'll set that to equal a dictionary. We're accessing the fields property and we'll set that to be our add fields list above. We'll then print the feature layer name to screen along with the status that we hope returns a JSON message of success true. Before running, I am going to go through updating the fields for the rest of our feature layers and tables. Up next is the park trails. Here we're creating another string field called park name and two more string fields, one called trail type and the other trail difficulty, and both of those we will add coded domains to in a later video. Again, we use the feature layer manager property and the add to definition method to add those fields to our park trails layer. Our third layer is our park boundaries. Here we're adding a field of type double called area_HA for areas in hectares. We're also creating a string field called park status, and again we'll add a domain for that later. We add those fields to the feature layer. Next up we have our tables. Our first table is our park maintenance information. So instead of accessing a feature layer object, we're accessing a table object. So we're using the item object, accessing the tables property that returns a list of table objects. We're getting the first table, which is our park maintenance information, and assigning that to a variable called table. Again, we make our add fields list. We're using a date only for our last inspection and a date only for our next inspection. We have contact name as a string, contact number as a string, and also issue reported as a string. We use the table object and the manager, which is also a feature layer manager object, and the add the definition method to add the fields above to our park maintenance information table. And lastly, we have our viewpoint reviews. Here we're adding a field of type small integer, a date only of review date, a string for weather, which will become a domain, comments field, and two fields that we're going to delete in a couple of videos time. I'm now going to run this script and we will add all those fields to our feature layer and tables in our feature service. Our script is complete. For all our feature layers and tables, we will return success true, indicating that all the fields were added successfully. Let me pop on over to ArcGIS Online and check out the result. Here I have the home page for our Park Trails feature service. I'll click into data, and already we can see the viewpoint type, viewpoint description, and average rating. If I click into fields on the left, we'll see it a bit easier. If we look at viewpoint name, this has an alias of viewpoint name that is a lot neater without the underscore. If we check our viewpoint type, we did not set the alias, so the alias has taken on the name of the field. And I can go down through each of our feature layers and see the fields added. We can also see that the park name field also was not given an alias. We'll go to our park boundaries. We have our area hectares and our park status added. And into our fields for our park maintenance information, we can see our fields added where last inspection did not have an alias. And our viewpoint reviews, we have all our fields, and we are going to delete the bottom two fields here in a couple of videos time. In the next video, we're going to update some of our fields. We'll update the alias, the length for text fields, and also a default value. I've also added a text file to the fields folder in the follow along Python scripts, and this text file contains templates for all the field types in ArcGIS Online. Make sure to continue on to the next video in this series, and also make sure to subscribe. Take care.